Senator Rand Paul absolutely destroys Anthony Fauci. Karine Jean-Pierre gets cornered by a reporter regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, and the numbers are in on how much this border crisis is costing the American taxpayer. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Thursday, September 15th, and as always, I couldn't be happier than to spend these fine mornings doing The Bald Brad Show and hanging out with all of you, my friends and true American patriots, where we come together as a community of conservatives and Republicans, go over the stories of the day, and bring you all the news and information you need to know about. So if you want to join us here at The Bald Brad Show and you haven't already, what are you doing? Hit that like and subscribe button. If you're over at Rumble, hit the plus and give us a comment down below. And if you're listening on any of the podcast airwaves, Apple, Google, Spotify, heck, folks, you can listen to us and find us anywhere and everywhere. Leave us a lovely 5-star review. Not only would you be helping a conservative, but most importantly, you'd be supporting getting conservative thought and ideas out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help and support would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, it's Thursday, folks. Let's jump right in the news with Senator Rand Paul completely just destroying Anthony Fauci with his own words. We got a video clip here of the destruction, folks. But Senator Rand Paul threatened Dr. Anthony Fauci during a testy hearing on Wednesday, making it abundantly clear that things would be different if Republicans were to gain control of Congress in the fast approaching midterm elections. Folks, I mean, the opening clip here and the destruction that Senator Rand Paul does on Anthony Fauci, it's some next level stuff. Let's go ahead and roll it.
But she's had the flu for 14 days. Should she get a flu shot?
Well, no. If she got the flu for 14 days, she's as protected as anybody can be, because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
And
so
she should not get it?
If she really has the flu, she definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine. If she really has the flu,
she should not get it again.
No, she doesn't need it, because it's the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself.
This is an ongoing question, and we've had ever-evolving opinions from you, Dr. Fauci. Currently, antibody surveys show that 80% of children, approximately 80% of children, have had COVID, and yet there are no guidelines coming from you or anybody in the government to take into account their naturally acquired immunity. You seemed quite certain of yourself in 2004, but in 2022, there's a lot less certainty. One of the things that we also know after looking at this for 2 to 3 years is that the mortality from COVID is very similar, if not less, than influenza. So when we look at this, we wonder, why you seem to really embrace basic immunology back in 2004 and why you seem to reject it now.
Well, I don't reject basic immunology, Senator. And I have never denied that there is importance of the protection following infection. However, as we have said many times, and as has been validated by the authorization by the FDA through their committee and the recommendation by the CDC through their committee, that a vaccination following infection gives an added extra boost. And that film that you showed is really taken out of context. I believe that was when someone called in who had had a reaction to a vaccine and asked me through a telephone in the interview if they should get vaccinated again. So it was in the context of someone who had a reaction. And as a matter of fact, Reuters fact check looked at that and said, Fauci's 2004 comments do not contradict his pandemic stance.
Actually, words don't lie. If you look at the
we're going to continue, but words don't lie. Both can be true at the same time. He could be taking a phone call, and the person could have had a reaction, and him specifying, hey, you don't need to get the vaccination, one, because you already had the flu, and two, don't get one because you're going to have an allergic reaction to it. Second of all, it could also be true the fact of saying, hey, you know what? Basically, you have immunity. You have the best type of immunity from having the virus. There's no need to go get the vaccination afterwards because you've already have a pent-up immunity for it, which goes against exactly what they were trying to sell us at the beginning in terms of the vaccine. The vaccination for COVID-19 was supposed to be that you would never get it, that you weren't going to spread it. There's no symptoms, nothing. And then later on, they changed it and morphed it and changed it into something of like, oh, well, you could still get it. You can still contract it. You can still spread it. It just decreases the symptoms. It decreases your likelihood of living. I had the vaccine. I think vaccines are important, but the information that was peddled and spread was absolutely false. And so he's trying to get out of a little sticky situation because he was just caught on film contradicting himself from a 2004 statement to a 2022 statement. So pretty interesting here. And you're going to see how he's a little dodgy on answering questions. The highest paid government employee that we've ever seen is going to have the highest paid pension that we've ever seen is now dodging people's questions.
Words behind me, we can go over them a little bit at a time. She doesn't need it because the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself.
It is true. It is true, Senator. It is a very potent way to protect.
So when you're trying to tell us that kids need a third or a fourth vaccine, are you including the variability or the variable of previous infection in the studies? No, you're not. Because when you have approved vaccines in recent times, and the committees that have approved it for children don't report anything on hospitalization or death or transmission. They only report that if you give them the jab, they'll make antibodies. And you can give kids hundreds of jabs and they'll make antibodies every time, but that does not prove efficacy. So what you're doing is denying the very fundamental premise of immunology that previous infection does provide some sort of immunity. It's not in any of your studies. Almost none of your studies from the CDC or from the government have the variable of whether or not you've been previously infected. So let's look at adults.
If that is true, you guys, that is crazy. So in other words, to kind of connect it to maybe something you and I have been dealing with for a while is talking about the wage gap between men and women. And I promise there's a point to this and connecting it to this is they'll take the average of wage earners, not using any variables, just taking averages. And they'll say that, you know, women make 70 cents under the dollar compared to men or whatever. Before it used to be like 52 cents back in the day. And now they say it's 70 cents, whatever. They take the averages, but they leave out a lot of variables within that calculation that would change that data. Very similar to here is if this is true of leaving out vaccinations or those that were just not vaccinations, excuse me, those that were ultimately already immune because they had the virus and contracted it, that skews the data dramatically in a certain direction. And so if they're leaving that variable out, which is a very important variable, then that messes around with the data a lot. And I think that's what Rand Paul's saying here. If that is true, that is crazy.
I've had 3 infections. Should I get a 4th one? If you're going to measure whether I get a 4th one, you need a category that has a 4th one in it, and you need one that has nothing in it, no vaccine or the 4th vaccine. But you also need to know whether they've been infected. If you ignore whether they've been infected, you're ignoring a vaccine, basically, so you're ignoring a variable. So what you're giving us is you decry, and people decry vaccine hesitancy. It's coming from the gobbledygook that you give us. You're not paying attention to the science. The very basic science is that previous infection provides a level of immunity. If you ignore that in your studies, if you don't present that in your committees, you're not being truthful or honest with us.
Senator.
He's not wrong, you guys. If, like I said, if they're not showing that in any studies, that is 100% not being truthful. I mean, it's the same way of saying men or women get paid less than men, right? It's untruthful because you're taking an average. You're not actually incorporating certain variables that are going to change that data. In the same way here, you have a massive variable that's being left out here that's skewing the data. What a misrepresentation of the information coming from Fauci.
If I might respond, I have never, ever denied fundamental immunology. In fact, I wrote the chapter in the textbook of medicine
Is it
on fundamental
any of the guidelines,
immunology.
any of the guidelines for vaccines?
You know,
do any of the guidelines for vaccines from the government include previous infection as something to base your decision making on with vaccines? Do any of the guidelines involve previous infection? That's why you're ignoring previous infection, because it doesn't involve any of the guidelines. And furthermore, We've been asking you, and you refuse to answer, whether anybody on the vaccine committees gets royalties from the pharmaceutical companies. I asked you last time, and what was your response? We don't have to tell you.
Right.
We've demanded them through Freedom of Information Act, and what have you said? We're not going to tell you. But I tell you this, when we get in charge, we're going to change the rules, and you will have to divulge where you get your royalties from what companies, and if anybody in the committee has a conflict of interest, we're going to learn about it. I promise you that.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to that, please?
May.
Okay, there are two aspects for what you said. You keep saying you approve, you do this, you do that. The committees that give the approval are FDA through their advisory committee. The committees that recommend are CDC through their advisory.
All right, I don't know if you guys are catching how he's flipping the script here. One, he never acknowledged the fact that they were leaving a variable out. He never talked about that, which makes you wonder if Rand Paul is actually speaking truth here of them leaving out a massive variable within their studies and multiple studies. Second of all, notice that once Rand Paul says, hey, second we start taking over in the midterms and we're going to change shit, and we're going to start really looking into this, and you, Anthony Fauci, look what he's doing here, spreading the blame. He's moving the pieces around going, oh, well, they said it. Hold on, I never said this. No, it was them that made the decisions. It was them that put this in place. You see what he's doing here, folks? He's trying to cover his own you-know-what right now because he knows what's coming this November.
Committee. And you keep saying, I'm the one that's approving a vaccine based on certain data. So I don't really understand, with all due respect, Senator.
You're the one that said you would not reveal what companies gave you royalties or what company gave the other scientists royalties.
Gotta move
That's
on.
what you told the committee.
Senator Paul, you
Sir,
gotta move on.
Could I please answer that?
Briefly,
You
yes.
keep asking committees. They're not my committees. They're the VRPAC committee for the FDA and the ACIP for the CDC. So I don't have any idea what goes on
And they
with
won't
the...
reveal, as well as you won't reveal
Okay,
what
we're
companies
gonna
you got.
move on. We're over time. Senator Paul, you're over. Everyone is over a little bit. I just want to make sure we keep on time here. For the record, I know Chair Murray.
So he's going to continue here. There's really nothing much after that. I don't know if you saw Anthony Fauci trying to grab something. Is Rand Paul previously asked him about his royalties, and he did give a certain description and a specific description of where royalties are going and how much it was. I think there's maybe information that he's not sharing within there, but we'll have to find out if things do change from Democrat to Republican in the midterms. You could really see a lot of investigations happening with Anthony Fauci and kind of the mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. So there you have Rand Paul versus Anthony Fauci. The charades continue, the theatrics continue. Can't wait to see what happens coming this midterm and thereafter between them two. Now, in our next news story here, we covered Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday, and there was a snippet that we did leave out that I want to cover because I think it's important. It goes in conjunction with the new inflation numbers that just came out. It started at 9.1, went down to 8.5, and now we're at 8.3. If you recall, in the 8.5 data, because it went down from 9.1 to 8.5, that's when you had Joe Biden, Karine Jean-Pierre taking to Twitter, and a bunch of other White House admins saying, oh, look, 0% inflation. And they got freaking shellacked and whipped upside the head for saying such an idiotic statement when it was 8.5. They're kind of doing something similar here where they're saying that it's flat, where it went down from 8.5 to 8.3. That's kind of a gimmick and a misrepresentation. By saying that it's flat, you could almost say in another phrase of, well, it's 0%, nothing changed, it's flat, right? So rather than saying it's zero because they got shellacked, now they're saying it's flat. Now, inflation is still 8.3%, meaning you're paying on average 8.3% higher for certain goods and services on average than you were just a year before. Furthermore, fuel prices have come down, which is a good thing. We can all agree that is a very good thing. But the problem is that they're saying that as fuel prices come down, our services and goods are going up as well. So you're paying more for energy, like not gas, but just energy in general, like your utilities. You're paying more for natural gas, clean energy. You're paying more for goods and services. So other things are going up, but you have fuel prices going down, which is where they're saying that it's coming flat. You're still paying way more. Mind you, they've been boasting about this Inflation Reduction Act for how long now? And oh, it's so great and everybody's going to love it. And all, Democrats are on board. It's bipartisan and all this other stuff, yada, yada, yada. Well, we finally have a reporter doing her job and asking questions. So White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was tripped up on Tuesday over how the Inflation Reduction Act will accomplish inflation reduction. It's been everybody's question because this is what they were peddling and pushing. Turns out, hasn't really done the job it said it was going to do. Earlier in the day, the Bureau of Labor Statistics pushed the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, for August, showing a 0.1% inflation increase from July. A worrying sign, especially amid dropping gas prices. The figures showed inflation grew 8.3% year over year. Even worse, so-called core inflation, which excludes food and energy costs, grew 0.6%. So no matter which way you look at this thing, it ain't looking good. And like I said, she gets questioned here by a reporter during the White House press briefing. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Around. Go ahead, and then I'll come back.
What exactly would the Inflation Reduction Act do to reduce inflation in the short term?
So when you look at the lowering costs in particular for Americans, I think that's important when you think about how inflation has increased costs for Americans. If you think about the $100 saving about $100 per year on premiums with ACA, when you think about lowering costs for our seniors, capping that at $2,000 a year instead of thousands and thousands of dollars a month, that lowering of cost as we deal with a time.
Jesus, you guys, we're not even through the answer in air quotes for that's listening. This is what BSing looks like. Okay, a lot of us are good at BSing. A BSer can call it a BSer, folks. This is some next level, just terrible at her job. She doesn't have a clue. The Democrats don't have a clue. They just push through this stuff because they love spending your money. They love throwing money out the door left and right. We're over $30 trillion. Yes, you heard me correctly, folks. $30.8 trillion in debt. And this is the stuff they're pushing and peddling and can't give a simple answer to a simple question.
That is difficult for many Americans. Look, experts, economists has said themselves that this would be the Inflation Reduction Act would be beneficial to that extra $300 billion in deficit. That is really important as we have right now $1.7 billion in deficit deduction under this administration. It would help lower that even more, which is incredibly important. And so, look, we've heard from Republicans and Democrats who were U.S. Treasury secretaries who said it would lower inflation. We've heard from more than 126 economists said it would lower inflation. And so I think that is also an important fact that we point to when we talk about the importance of the Inflation Reduction Act, the importance of lowering costs for American families, even as you look at the energy costs as well.
But some of the savings that you're pointing to wouldn't kick in until 2024 or 2026. So is it fair to suggest to people that somehow they're going to see some inflation reduction right now while they're hurting the most?
Well, that is actually...
I just want to pause it really quick. The main question was, how is inflation going to be basically dropped or reduced in the short term? She gave a long, rambling, cockamamie, diarrhea answer that never answered the question whatsoever. There was an answer to a question that was never asked. This lady here, reporter, forgive me, I don't know her name or what outlet she's with, basically takes that same question, rephrases it, and still is putting it in the short-term area in terms of, well, what's going to happen in the short term for inflation to reduce. I mean, I don't even know if she's going to get an answer here, but let's find out what this lady has to say now.
Not true. So this is just for some folks who are watching. Consumers, families, and small businesses owners can head to cleanenergy.gov as it relates to the energy cost component, the lowering of cost, to learn more about how they can start saving money immediately thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, tax credits and rebates. That is real. Inflation Reduction Act credits and rebates available today include a 30% credit to cover the cost of installing rooftop solar, up to 10% credit to cover the cost of insulation materials and other energy efficient improvements like energy savings, windows and doors, a $300 tax credit for purchasing efficient heating and cooling equipment like a heat pump or central air conditioner, a tax credit of up to $7,500 for purchasing a new electric vehicle. All of these things could happen and are available to folks. Those rebates are available to folks. Those tax credits are available to folks today. I'm going to go around.
You gotta have money to buy it, Karine. We're in an inflation right now. Hello? Well, you can get a rebate if you go buy a brand new car, a brand new energy vehicle. Hey, why don't you go get some new roofing right now? Because that's a good idea. While people are struggling just to put bread on their table, buy freaking eggs that are up like 30%. They are so far removed from the American public, folks. It is mind-boggling. I wanted to play that clip for you because I really want to see and show all of you how bad she is at her job. I know that you guys know. I know we talk about it all the time. But for the love of God, have you seen anybody worse? We thought Jen Psaki was bad. I called it. Go back to our old videos, folks. I'm giving myself some praise here. I said she was going to suck. I said she was going to be worse than the lady. Case in point, what we just saw. A bunch of BS. $180,000 the American taxpayers paying her, plus pension and benefits, to do this. I think she gets a pension. She definitely gets benefits, but $180,000 to do that job? For sweet love of God. So there you have it. Karine Jean-Pierre just manipulating, spinning stories, lying to you once again, and just bullshitting you straight to your face, and not a lack of care in the world for doing so. Look, if you're going to BS somebody, at least be good at it. You know what I mean? At least show me that you put some thought behind it. Like if you're going to lie to my face, at least make it good. You know what I mean? Put some effort into it, like you studied up on the subject just a tiny bit. Maybe some big words. She didn't do any of that. She was trying to just think on her feet as if she's never talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. As if she thought, you know what? The numbers just came out. Nobody's going to ask me about how the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't actually reduce inflation because the numbers just went up. You got to be an idiot, right? You got to know that question's coming. In the same way, when you had Kamala Harris come out and say that the border was secure, you got to know that Fox News or some sort of other reporter was going to question you on it, right? It was a layup one. You got to be prepared for it. And she gave a terrible answer to that as well. So it's as if she's not preparing for her job, or she is preparing and she just still sucks at it. I don't know, folks. But there you have it. That's the latest from Karine Jean-Pierre. And also the latest, we finally have some numbers here, folks, dealing with moolah, money, the taxpayer, on how much the burden of this illegal immigration is having on us Americans here. And folks, I hope you're sitting down here. Are y'all sitting down? Because the number I'm about to read to you in a moment is going to make you fall out of your seat anyway. So maybe you should stand up, I suppose. I don't know. Nearly 5 million illegal aliens have crossed the border since President Joe Biden took office. Yes, for those that might have heard me incorrectly, 5 million illegal aliens have crossed the border since President Joe Biden took office. So far this year, we're in September, of those encountered at the southern border, over 500,000 illegal aliens have been released into the interior of the country by Border Patrol. In addition to depressing the wages of low-skilled American citizens, committing crimes beyond their initial breaking of American immigration laws, and potentially undermining the integrity of elections, illegal aliens also are costing U.S. taxpayers a great deal of money. A new study published by the Federation of American Immigration Reform determined that to provide for those needs of those criminal non-citizens who have entered the U.S. under Biden alone, taxpayers must carry the burden of an additional $20.4 billion every year. Not a decade, $20.4 billion every year just for those who entered under Biden. 5 million illegal aliens. To put this in perspective of how much we're talking money-wise here, you guys, there's 22 million illegal aliens in this country. And remember the other day, you had Karine Jean-Pierre come on the podium and say, oh, well, we're getting the other countries in South America to invest $1.5 billion. I don't know if you saw my reaction. I rolled my eyes. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're spending way so far beyond that in terms of money. This is every year. By the time this guy's out of office, you're looking at $40 billion. Just for the 5, not including the 22. FAR noted that this annual figure is not included in the estimated $140 billion per year that taxpayers already waited with. So we're going to be paying $160,000. Well, forgive me, folks. Very rarely do I ever talk in billions. $160 billion per year plus for this illegal immigration. So in 10 years, over $1 trillion. Isn't that just lovely? Isn't that just freaking lovely? per year that taxpayers already waited with, which compensates for the provision of services and benefits for the longer-term illegal alien population. It's all right, folks. We can all afford this. Not a big deal. We're only $30 trillion in debt. Don't worry about it. Not including those people slipped past Border Patrol, there was 1.7 million border encounters in 2021, and so far this year, there have been a record-breaking 1.9 million, so basically 2 million border encounters. So we're only in September, and Joe Biden has already beaten his previous record from the prior year, and the year is not even over yet. According and accounting for removals and Title 42 expulsion, FAIR found that nearly 2.3 million illegal aliens have remained in the country's interior since January 2021. FAIR arrived at the 20.4 billion figure after multiplying the estimated number of illegal immigrants who have recently entered by a conservative cost estimate, meaning they lowballed it, of $9,000 per illegal alien per year. Dan Stein, president of FAIR, suggested that this money could alternatively address some very important needs of American public. Instead of covering the cost of the surge of illegal immigration or migration triggered by the administration's policies. Don't you love how Jen Psaki, Karine Jean-Pierre, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris were all complaining about how much it was to build a border wall and how inefficient it was, even though it was extremely efficient, that we didn't see these kind of numbers here. You're looking at $160 billion a year spent on what's going on now. You can build a massive, beautiful wall that nobody's going to climb, nobody's going to build tunnels under. It's just going to be the most beautiful, spectacular wall with a nice big open wall, nice big open door for everybody to just walk through that's coming legally, folks, legally. It's so mind-boggling, the lack of actual reason and logic in Democrats' minds to be able to build a wall and save money in the back end and maybe put that money towards our freaking, I don't know, our debt or taking care of our vets. How about getting them off the streets rather than freaking paying for illegal aliens' hotel fees all across the country? FAIR looked at how else this money could be spent and determined that this money might otherwise be used for, here's a list, folks, provide every homeless veteran in America $50,000 per year for 10 years. Give every family earning $50,000 or less a $410 grocery voucher. Provide supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits to over 7 million additional needy American families. Hire more than 315,000 police officers nationwide to combat rising crime. You got to love, too, that something that's not included in here is not only hiring police officers, but how about you hire officers to go on our school campuses to keep them safe? How about we spend money on that where it should be needed? But no, we're not going to do this. We love spending on people that are not Americans. That's just great. And not like 1 billion, 2 billion, 160 billion per year. Although the price tag on unchecked criminal migration is high, it's even likely even higher than that. If the Biden administration's spring's decision to end Title 42 currently is in legal limbo, goes into effect, the burden on taxpayers will only increase. Title 42, a policy introduced during the Trump presidency, enabled border authorities to quickly throw out a non-citizen who had entered the U.S. illegally. And it was doing yeoman's work down there by removing them with this Title 42. So what they're saying is once that's removed, because it's in legal limbo right now from the Biden administration, once that gets pushed through, you think $160 billion is going to be it. Folks, you're looking at probably $200 billion per year because of this debacle that the Bidens, the White House, the Democrat Party has created for all of us. And it's being taken out of your wallet. When Title 42 falls, either by court decision or by the CDC's decision to expire, check this out, 18,000 illegal aliens are projected to cross the border daily. At that rate, over 6.5 million would cross in the course of just 1 year. This will add $166 million to American taxpayers' annual illegal alien tab every day. And I think that's a conservative number. Just want me to read this again? $166 million to American taxpayers' annual illegal alien tab every day. The amount of billions we're spending here, like I said, this is going to freaking knock you out of your chair. I didn't think it was going to be this high. This is crazy, you guys. This is crazy, and the Democrats don't care. They love spending your money. They suck at running everything. The government sucks at running everything. We need to build this wall. We need to build a bigger and better wall than what we have. Hire more border security agents. Take the money that we're saving by building this wall and stopping this bleeding that's happening of this illegal immigration and actually put it towards creating a safer America for all of us. Folks, I want to know what you think about all this. Let me know. Are you tired of spending $160 billion per year on things that should be going towards Americans rather than this debacle? Let me know in the comments below, folks. As always, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You do a great job of supporting us here at the show, and I will see you tomorrow here on The Paul Brad Show.